So I will call the meeting to order at, I guess it's 2 o'clock. We have received regrets from Gary, and otherwise we're all here. So thank you. I'd like to make sure all of you are aware that we lost Willie Wildman recently. She was a member of this board from '95 and sat on the Arts and Culture Council as well. An artist and arts instructor, she was an avid supporter of the gallery. But we were sad to hear the news of her passing. So with that, I'd like to ask for a moment of reflection. Thank you. I'm going to read the Indigenous Acknowledgement Statement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Wyandot peoples. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a mover and a seconder for that, please? I see Joanne, mover, and Dorothy, seconder. Any changes to the agenda? Great. Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the agenda? Good. Thank you very much. It's approved. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Good. Seeing none, we'll move on. There are 5 reports to be received as information that are listed on the agenda. That would be the action plan update for April, the CEO service update for April, the risk assessment 2022 report. We don't have the Q1 variance report, so we will take that off. So there's just 4, the 4th being the strategic planning working group update for April. We have a mover and second to receive those reports. I see Morris, and I see Joanne. Any questions? In which case I'll ask for a motion in favor. All in favor? Seeing everybody, say thank you, that's carried. So on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? I see Jesse and Andrea. So this is a motion to approve the minutes of March 17, 2022. I just have one tiny correction to make in G2. It's referring to our planning meeting in May and says one of the items will be orientation of the board and council. In fact, it should be recruitment of the board and presentation to council. Now, we won't be talking about orientation for the next board until the fall. So that's just a small correction. Does anybody else have any corrections to the minutes? Now I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the minutes? Great, seeing everybody, I'll say that is carried. Any business arising from the minutes? No? Okay, then we'll move on. I don't think we need the motion about discussions of business arising, as there was none. We'll cross that off. And there were no deputations scheduled. There is nobody else here to provide public input, and there is no correspondence. Is that all correct, Sabrina? Okay, seeing you nod. So we don't need a motion about correspondence. So let's move on to the strategic plan updates and action items. So E1 is the action plan update for April. And that was a document that has been reorganized around the 3 pillars of the strategic plan and has been filled out quite a bit since the last time you saw it. This is our effort to bring in the Q3 and Q4 items on the agenda. This is not for approval today because we will probably have some things come up at our May planning meeting that will get added to it. So it's really here just to see if you have any comments or questions or anything around the progress to date. I'm going to adjust my screen to make sure I can see everybody. Here we go. Okay. So are there any comments or questions? I had one tiny one. On page 5, OE 1.7 about attending board assembly meetings. There's actually 2 a year, and so we need to add fall as well as spring. And that is on the agenda today. Oh, no, that's not important. So are there any other questions or comments about the action plan for now? No. Okay, I'm pretty impressed at the number of things that landed on this, particularly the staff items. You're looking like you're having a very ambitious year, Sabrina. So good luck. Okay, moving on to the next item is the report on the Craigslist Heritage Depot roof. So I'll turn that over to Sabrina.
So just a verbal update on this one. The council is taking all responsibility on this matter. We're involved to make sure the heritage component is being maintained as well as from an operational standpoint. So council has gone through and put out the call for the product. It should be installed very soon. They said 3 weeks. It was back ordered and we're now coming into our 3rd week. So I anticipate the roof being on sometime in the next month. So we're hoping by mid-May. They did do a temporary repair, but they only went so far as putting on a membrane that we would be able to keep building on from, as opposed to putting up a asphalt roof that we're then going to rip off and waste money. So it has blown off once in that time because of course it is just the base membrane. When we had our windstorm about a week and a half ago, they came back and re-adhered that. So we hope that we'll be good to go for that one. In addition to the roof, it won't all happen at the same time because the roof is most definitely the priority, but we'll be moving forward with the siding of the building, the cladding of the building, resurfacing our windows, replacing our doors, all of the pieces that were part of the Heritage Grant. And if you've driven past the depot recently, you'll see the large sign is up thanking the government for their partnership on this project.
Thank you. Any questions for Sabrina? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the CEO service.
Morris does have a question, sorry.
Oh, sorry, looked away. You're muted, Morris.
Not better?
Yep.
Okay, my question really was, over this next little while, will the depot be shut down, like not available to the public? Oh, so
we're not expecting any downtime on this. There may be some minor issues where, you know, there's one day that we'll make sure that access to the door is not blocked. We're open in later afternoons and in the evenings, and we're not open on Monday. So we're doing our best to make sure that the door, the actual main entry of the door, won't be blocked on a day that we're open, so that hoping they'll start that side with the Monday, but we should be able to work right around their schedule. If there is going to be any disruptions, it should be minor, and we will definitely publicize that on social media.
Any other questions? Okie dokie. So back to Sabrina for the service update for April.
So the service update was provided in the package. I'm not sure if there were any questions that anybody had. I'm just looking to see if there's anything that I wanted to highlight on it. I think the biggest thing to highlight, which will also come up in our roundtable, is we have our first juried show that is coming up, and we are really hoping that community members will apply. We have had some apply, not as many as we would hope, but it is the first round of this particular program. But the deadline is April 30th. So we're a week away. I anticipate we'll get some more numbers at that point. But if you are an artist, if you have friends or family that's artists, we certainly hope that you'll apply for this juried show. And important to note that we have a children's component of that. So there's no fee for youth who are 20 and under. We don't have a minimum age, so we may get some very young budding artists, and we may have some who are at the high school or even early college levels. So certainly spread the word on that one. Outside of that, our building is open. We're moving closer to regular hours from where we've been over the pandemic. We're still not open all the hours that we were in 2019. So Ellie Shore is not open on Sundays still, and Ellie Shore, instead of being open until 8 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday, is only open until 7. CHD is at regular hours. And the reason we did the lightening of hours at Ellie Shore is it's helping us to spread the budget to have staff do the virtual programming still, which is quite time consuming. But we're moving much closer now to that hybrid model. And I think this will probably be the hours for a time to come until we're ready to pull back on some of these virtual programs. Outside of that, an update on here that's not in the report, as we are currently working with GoVax Bus so that we can be a host site, hopefully, for vaccination pop-up clinics here in the community. We anticipate that being in May, most likely the week of the long weekend. We haven't set our date yet, but we're working with them for that. So there'll be more to come on that, and we'll definitely be promoting to the community, again, trying to be a partner and supporting everyone through the pandemic. Unless there's specific questions about other areas, I am happy to answer those.
I see Dorothy.
Yep, thank you. Sabrina, I'm just wondering if there's been any feedback from the community on the slightly reduced hours.
We have had some people still ask for Sundays, and then we have some who said, I didn't even remember that we were open on Sundays. So, you know, it's kind of a mix. Sunday, we were open for a very short period of time in the past. It used to be 12 until 4. And it does help to take those 2 staff off of that period and be able to put that into our virtual programming, the creation of content. I know that our community has also changed in the way they are using services and using after hours. So, you know, we were ready to go to the 8 p.m., but we really saw a drop off from 7 o'clock on. So I think this is the way that we're living as people after the pandemic has changed. Pace has slowed down. People are doing things closer to work hours, and really when they're coming home, they're kind of home now. So we've adjusted those hours to meet this sort of new status that we're seeing our community use, and we will continue to monitor and ask community what's working for them, and we'll change as needed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm going to move on to the chair's report. So I worked quite a bit with Sabrina and staff on the year-end review content this month, as well as the strategic plan documents and the action plan for 2022. So as far as it's gone anyway. We also developed together the plan for tackling the 3 main topics that are coming up at the May planning meeting. So I just want to give you a bit more context information about the planning meeting. The 3 biggest topics, there will be others, but the 3 biggest are a discussion of key supporters, the legacy document, and board recruitment. So under the key supporters, I've asked staff to pull together a list of supporters that we know of from a number of sources, like the strategic plan, our volunteers, our donors, our top users. There's other areas as well. And I've also asked for a list of those who are not so supportive. And this information will be compiled and presented at the May meeting for us to discuss. What I'd like to do at that meeting is we can add names from our own group of acquaintances. So I'd like you to, and I will do this as well, of course, think about who they might be in advance that we could add to this list. We'll be using an app called, I think it's called Jamboard. And that way we'll be able to group people sort of by level of support. So there'll be, red, yellow, and green. And part of our discussion will be, how might we, the green would be the strong supporters we already know are already out there. How might we move some of the yellow group, I'll call it, who aren't, who could go either way, or, are not people we would yet know to call on if we needed help. So, how would we influence that group and move them from yellow to green? And then we have a group of red. So how might we approach that group to turn them into people that will start to be supporters for the library? So that's going to be the main purpose of that discussion. I don't really think we'll get it all done in one meeting. So this might be something that we do in steps over a little bit of time. And eventually my hope is that we'll end up with a plan on how to recruit and cultivate key supporters for us. So your homework, if you will, before that meeting is to think about your acquaintances and who you might think you could put into our green, well, any of the groups, a green, yellow, or red, I suppose. I'm going to go on with the other 2 items. I saw Morris looked like he wanted to ask a question, but let me finish the other 2 and then we can come back to that, okay?
Sure.
So the legacy document, what I'd like to do is ask you all to review the Planning Your Board's legacy, which was something, in fact, Sabrina will send you slides to look at from this. It was a webinar. That's the one that Joanne attended earlier this year. So I like to use that as a basis. And if we all look at the slides that Sabrina will provide, then that will give us a common starting point. There's certain slides, and this is what you'll be receiving as well, is they'll have questions on the slides. And that would like each of us to consider our answers to those questions in advance. So there are things that are all about governance from our perspective. So things like major achievements, challenges, key lessons, relationships. And then what will happen is we will compile that information. It's sort of in a brainstorming session that will be captured. I'm not sure whether it's the same software, it doesn't really matter. And then kind of like a easel, a flipboard approach. And then following the meeting, we'll compile the information and start to develop the actual document. And then the document itself will then come back to the board at a later meeting for review and approval. And I've asked Joanne if she'll help with the development of that document. She was the one that actually attended the webinar and expressed an interest in doing so. So Joanne, I'll be back to you about dates to get together in our process for that. So that's the second topic. And the third one is about board recruitment. And again, there'll be some material going out to you in advance for this item as well. We talked about possibility of a draft job description for board members. We don't actually have that. We have bits and pieces, but they're in a few different spots. So we have asked Sabrina if she would pull that together so we can look at a draft job description. That's something that actually came up, I think, in our board evaluation last fall, is that there's sort of no one place to look for that information. I've also updated the information for prospective board members, which was the kind of a catch-all of information that if you're interested in applying to the board, you would need to know in advance. And so at the meeting, Sabrina's going to provide an overview of our approach in 2018. So just for some of us refresh and for some of us to learn what our process was at that time. And then we'll discuss how we want to move forward. And the point would be, whatever we decide to do, of course, is something that we can't do alone because it's council that makes these appointments. So it would be about, what process do we as a board think would be helpful and help the board achieve its goals in the next 4 years, and then what might be to present to council as a proposed process. And then they can choose how they want to proceed with that, because of course it's council that actually makes the appointments. There are a couple of other items that will show up on that agenda. There will be the regularly scheduled policy review, and this is the annual items, and that's the health and safety and AODA items. And Sabrina will be sending you that information out, so you get the bunch of files to take a look at. And the other thing I just want to, and I'll probably look at the 22 action plan again, because I'm assuming some things will come out of the May meeting that will say, we want to be doing this over the balance of this year. And we talked about whether we should try and do this meeting in person or Zoom or a hybrid. And we thought, Sabrina and I thought that's probably better just to go with Zoom, because the hybrid is a bit more awkward for me to manage, frankly, which is one of the reasons I thought I'd stay home this time. And also we'll all be looking at the software online in any case that will help us do the discussion. So that's my thinking for the May meeting, and I'm open to any questions or suggestions. And I can start with Morris, since I know you had one earlier. You just muted yourself, Morris, sorry.
I can certainly understand your problem with Zoom meeting and hybrid meetings. Anyhow, my question goes back to, it is a question. You were talking about supporters, green, yellow, and red, for want of a better thing. What, just for the purpose of, so that everyone is aware, how do we define a supporter? Is a supporter defined by the amount of, is it on a monetary basis, by the amount of money we donate or don't donate? How is it? Because to me, that's important.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked for, I made up a list, where's my file here, of sources where I think we would take a look at who might be a supporter. And I thought, from the discussions during strategic planning, there would be people that came forward being quite supportive. I think probably we can assume that members of the board, previous members of the board, and current and previous members of the advisory councils would be library supporters. Volunteers would be, donors would be. Some of the top users of the library, gallery, museum would be supporters. Some of our existing partners would be supporters, maybe followers on social media and groups that rent or use our space. So, there isn't really a measure. I think people that are fairly actively engaged with the library, museum, and gallery in a number of different ways could well become supporters. And this would give us a way to identify them. And, if we need people to speak on behalf of the library in one capacity or another, then we would have some idea of who's on that list.
but not monetarily.
No, no. I mean, I think maybe list of donors would be an indication that they're a supporter as well, but that would just be one source of information.
Yeah, I didn't want, well, I wasn't thinking in terms that we would be making up a list of those people who have donated money, because that's not what we're in business for.
I'm not
Not
sure what you're
correct.
saying. I think there are people on the donors list who would be supporters of the library, but we're not talking about trying to fundraise from people.
That's what I'm driving at. No, it's not a fundraising objective of any
No, no,
kind.
no, no.
I'm saying this as much for other people's benefit as mine.
Yes, yeah, no, that's not the intent. It's really just to really have an understanding of who's out there who's supporting the library. You know,
Thank
so,
you.
you know, if we're looking at, I don't know, a building at some point, and we know we are looking at expansion, you know, who might be interested in, you know, talking about the library and saying, yes, that's important to me. I'd like to see, you know, a facility here or there or whatever.
Sure. Okay.
Jesse, I saw your hand up.
Lori, I'm wondering if there is any way to track people who, adults who borrow books from the library in significant or consistent capacity.
That question I have to turn over to Sabrina, because I think there are PIPA implications to that one.
Certainly. So we do have records of all of our users. How we can use that is dictated by privacy law. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the highest user is our greatest advocate. We know that there have been studies about public libraries for decades that say sometimes your strongest advocate actually is somebody who doesn't use the library. They may be a person who is, you know, politically advocating for a social justice program that the library is offering. Additionally, when we talk about the library as the library board head of the organization, we are referring to the GLAM. So users are described very differently when we're talking about the museum, when we're talking about the gallery, when we're talking about various types of programs and partnerships that we have. So we will be looking at who is using us, who is supporting us, who have been people who have come out of the woodwork to make statements, whether it was in the positive or in the negative. And sometimes the people who have made negative comments about the library had a very direct opinion, and figuring out what it is we're not doing for them is as important as knowing who is supporting us. So if it's a financial matter, we have to understand that there's an argument that needs to be made to them so that they are now a supporter of us and they understand what we're doing. So it's not just about looking at the people who are there, you know, with the sign saying you're doing a good job. We have to find the people who also think that maybe we're not hitting a mandate and find out what is their need so that we adjust that model of communicating to them to make sure that they're on board with what we're doing.
Jesse?
Now, follow up, can you help me as to where there is one is offending privacy laws by sending letters, a generic form of letter, for let us say, to those persons who we know are using the library on a regular basis, whether to borrow books or to use the computers. How is that offensive to the privacy laws?
Sabrina?
Under CASL, there's the Canadian anti-spam legislation. There's very specific reasons that we can send communication. And our best bet would be to communicate with people through our newsletter, because that's the main source of our communication, and people sign up to actually receive that. If we're not specifically sending a message that has to do with the materials that are borrowed or the access that they've asked for or the communication content that they've asked for, we can't actually send letters. It's very similar with the municipality. They have an entire list of the roles of everybody who owns property here, and they can only communicate with them in very specific ways. So twice a year, they send out a tax bill, and it is only for the tax bill, and they stick a newsletter in there, but they can't send a newsletter at a different time. So that's all of our legislation. We work through it. We do communicate with our people the best that we can. I don't think that there's anybody who's not hearing our messages, though.
Jesse?
Not to flog a dead horse, but it seems to me that the goal or purpose of the exercise is to enlarge our knowledge of people who have an interest in and are prepared in some way, whether monetarily or otherwise, to promote the activities of the library. Therefore, is there anything inappropriate, for example, by putting a one-page written letter into a book that's borrowed, offering services of the library and asking them if they have any interest in expanding their interest?
Sabrina?
Not at all. And that's something that we do quite regularly when we need to communicate with the patronship.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on on my report? So as you can see, there will be a wee bit of homework to prepare for the May meeting. So we will try and get things out to you in good time so that you have a chance to think about this stuff, because it's only another month away. Morris, I saw your hand. You're muted.
This computer gets me. Coming back to what is your top of the head, fast 2-minute definition of legacy of the library board?
I think it's the message from an outgoing board to an incoming board about what we accomplished, what we think we did well, what we think are the challenges, and its intent is to help a new board hit the ground running with as much context and advice from the old board. Now, of course, we don't know how many of us will be on the new board. And that's one of the reasons you write this. Well, I mean, it's helpful to get everybody's synthesis of the last 4 years. And we just don't know which of us might be back, and how many new people will need a lot of this context in order to become a good functional board quickly.
Tell me, did we develop a legacy a year ago? I'm sorry, 4 years ago?
I believe we used our strat plan as the major legacy document at that time.
Yeah.
Sabrina, if I'm wrong, you jump in. I can't quite remember.
No, we did not do an additional document.
I was thinking that what this board puts out in a 4-year strat plan is a reflection of what this board would do and leaves that as a legacy for the new board. Am I not right?
I think my opinion is that a strat plan is an important part of it. But the strat plan doesn't say what we maybe thought were our key lessons or our key challenges over the last 4 years. So there's an opportunity to bring other types of information in. Joanne, can I ask you if you want to make some comments, because you participated in that webinar?
I'm agreeing with you. A strat plan is part of it, but it's not the whole package. What we did well, and what we would have liked to have done better, or what is left undone, and we would like the new board to come and do. I remember joining the board, and it wasn't so much the strat plan, it was the idea of that whole new big library that was carrying me forward. Well, surprise, surprise. So yeah, Morris, it's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And it doesn't have to be huge. You know, we could do a bullet form. There's lots of ways that it can be presented.
Any other questions or comments on that topic? Okay. In which case,
Lori, I was just going to say, just a reminder that the open portion of the meeting will be a bit later than our usual 2 o'clock start, because we'll be starting when we finished our closed section. But obviously, we are talking about people, places, and things. It will be a closed meeting for the morning and most of the afternoon because of the topic at hand. So just so that everybody is aware that we'll be having a very candid, open discussion. It will be in camera. And then we're expecting to move to the actual open portion of the meeting, probably in like the 3 o'clock hour, 3:30.
thank you. Morris?
Can I suggest that we make that date either all Zoom or all open meeting, like a regular board meeting?
Yes, we decided that we were going to do it all Zoom because of the, it's too hard to try and bridge the two. So we thought it had to be either all together or all Zoom. And under the circumstance, we thought it was better to do it all Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize. I tend not to see that little hand in the corner of these pictures. So feel free, if you put your hand up and I've missed it, to just jump in as you did, Sabrina. So thank you. Takes a while to get used to this stuff, I tell you. So the next report is the risk assessment report. And I wonder if I can ask Sabrina to speak.
Okay, so the risk assessment is something that is on our annual action plan that we were looking at bringing back this year. It is one of about 3 documents that we do having to do with risk as an annual basis. The first 2 we received here in January, and those were the ones that had to do with our health and safety and the physical safety of our staff. So those have already been addressed, and these are looking at a broader understanding of risk. So as an overall, we are at a low risk class. There's no major issues that the board should be concerned over. All of our policies and procedures are in place. We're working within our legislation. You have given clear direction to me as the CEO, so that I believe that the board and the CEO are working well together and knowing what needs to be done. That's been reflected in previous evaluations of both the board and of the CEO. All of our reporting is up to date with our ministry and with any of our funders. So we're not in any situations that we would need to be looking at. The other points that I've listed here really are a due diligence matter. So it's good that we know that although we are at a low risk, that things could of course happen. So I have addressed here, some issues that I'm dealing with the ministry, and I am not alone in this particular issue with the ministry. The Public Libraries Act defines all public library boards as of the date that they are established as incorporated. The government, although the ministry is part of the provincial government, doesn't recognize that. So we're in this catch-22 as public libraries always. So we are now working within with the ministry, with our lawyer for charitable status, and with the Service Ontario's registry for non-for-profits to actually move forward and get all of the paperwork done that needs to be done. I'm not quite sure why this happens. I'm in contact with the ministry, and they say that we are certainly not the first that have had this issue with trying to establish. And every time we do a grant, we're always in the same situation of needing a letter that is provided by the ministry that does say we have no incorporation number, but we are incorporated by the Public Libraries Act. So we've all been dealing with this for decades. It's just having to move forward with our registry as a charity has brought this matter up one more time, because to be a charity, you also must qualify for non-for-profit. And the question is, do we move backwards and do non-for-profit on our own, or do we keep fighting the fight that we are incorporated by the Public Libraries Act? And I think that we will win it one way or the other. It is a case, well, I know that we will win it one way or the other. It's a case of, do we want to make an impact to how public libraries are addressing this, or do we just want to fend for ourselves? So we're trying at this point to do the bigger piece, which hopefully will make some impact to all of the public libraries in Ontario, as opposed to just working on our own little matter. And that is not being done with the lawyer, that is being done with myself and the ministry. So there is no cost to that other than my time. It isn't that we're billing up legal fees on this matter. But it is an annoyance that I at best, that I think that all CEOs and boards have had to deal with since 1990, when it was established that we are incorporated, but there is no incorporation number. Outside of that, I think that all of the other issues are pretty straightforward. We know there's a pandemic. We know that there's a possibility that staff will get sick. We know there's a possibility that community members will not be happy with the service that we're providing and the limitations to services that we provide. And we certainly understand that if we were to become a hub of spread, that is a very negative aspect that we don't want to be affiliated with. So I think that outside of that, it really is a case of, business as usual during a pandemic. And then the last item that I had on here had to do with our facilities. We are making progress with the facilities. For those of you who were on the board in the previous board cycle, when I came in October of 2017, I began looking at the assessment of our facilities, started having some conversations about needs in the buildings that were not at a high level of maintenance. It was brought to my attention at that point that there had been a transition fairly recently from the previous senior management actually being responsible for maintaining the building, and then it being turned over to council during changes in 2016 and 2017. So I worked with them on things that needed to be done. At the same time, in 2018, council had a facility-wide needs assessment that was done on their facility conditions report. So each building had their own report. At that point, the Craigslist Heritage Depot and Ellie Shore both participated in that. And then we also added an additional report that we provided to the town, because we saw a number of things that were actually missing from the report by the consultants. So we've been working on that with town staff. We are making some headway. The roof, for example, has been discussed since 2017, and then of course it blows off in 2022, which is now making it a bit more of a required action. Yes, it would have been easier to do it in previous years, but we're here now and the town is working with it. So we are trying to look with the town to build future budgets. Again, this is the town's budget, not ours, but work with them to really identify some of those key issues that could be built into the next 3 years of maintenance budget. For example, the windows at Ellie Shore that are rotten, that leak, that had they been dealt with a decade ago, probably could have been saved, but now it's a full replacement of all the windows in the building. So things like that I know that the current maintenance staff and the current finance staff at the town are well aware of the mistakes that were made in previous decades and are looking to work with us to make those happen. So there are a few items that are on this list that are still issues. And then there's some of them that we know that we're just not going to address. So for example, the first bullet under Ellie Shore is talking about the bathroom plumbing. So that opens up a very large work process. So the plumbing in the bathroom is rotted. There is actually no pipes under the building. They have rotted through completely because there wasn't enough water flow and it damaged the pipes. So what we actually have is sewage that goes through basically concrete tubes because the concrete was poured around those pipes. For us to replace that would mean that we actually have to take the entire side of the building down. A, we have to get under the pipes, and B, the second we touch it, we are no longer grandfathered under AODA. So although I know that from a cost, we try to look at don't touch it, otherwise it meets AODA, it doesn't meet AODA. My response has always been, well, if it's not actually accessible, then it's not accessible. So we don't want to be grandfathered under AODA and not do work, but we also know that it isn't as simple as just replacing a toilet. It is a major expansion and change to the facility here at Ellie Shore. So a lot of people will say, why is the bathroom not being fixed? Why are we not doing this little piece? It is a very extensive project. So it's those types of things that we're working with the town to determine what is the best way. At what point do we expand a building to be able to rebuild bathrooms that meet the new AODA, but then also would have a proper water flow that won't have this type of issue happening again. Should it have happened in the first place? Probably not. I can't say how it happened, but it did. And it certainly happened well before any of us were sitting around this table. It's something that we've now inherited and we have to figure out how to work through. So I think that is many of the facility issues that are here on this list. They've all been identified. We've identified issues that are fairly simple, and some issues like reducing the height of the story tower to be able to properly vapor barrier and put in a new roof above it is a major piece, something that the board approved to be able to move forward with if the town was going to do that in their budget. And it's still something that's being looked at for next year's finances. So unless there are actual questions.
Are there any questions people would like to ask of Sabrina? Jesse.
It's not so much a question as a comment, but Sabrina, it sounds to me like the kind of dollars you're talking about really totally depend upon the position taken by council.
Most definitely. Yes, most definitely. I mean, the bathroom alone is a major piece. The windows are a few $100,000. Even reducing the story tower was estimated to be about 50 or 60,000. So, I mean, these are all big ticket items that the town will prioritize where they're working. They haven't been forgotten, but I know that we're not the only building that is in the same situation with the town.
Do we have any sense of the timelines from the town on some of those bigger items, or is that a year-to-year council decision?
It is a year-to-year. I know some of these things were actually intended to happen in 2021 and 22, like the windows. They were in the budgets, and of course, you know, the world changed and everything had to be clawed back to try to figure out how to get through the few years of lost revenue and additional expenses. The facilities manager, who is from the finance end that is working with us, is looking to get these back onto the town's dance card. It will be a new council who's looking at these. Again, just like the legacy document, we try to have as many documents that get people up to up to pace as quickly as possible. We never know how many people will be turning over on a council or on a library board. So we'll be making sure that these types of things are presented to the new council as well. Part of what comes out of our legacy work also is how do we want to work and communicate with with council members who are not council members, but council applicants, people who are intending to run, candidates. Are we going to be having all candidates meetings? Are we asking questions? Do we simply want to communicate with people and let them know sort of the lay of the land? These are types of things that we can talk about as a board, and I will assist however I can as a CEO. But again, we want our new council come November, December, when they're sworn in, to be right there ready to move forward with the budgetary decisions that are going to have to be made and understand where, Ellie Shore is specifically. CHD will be in much better shape by next year with the grant that was received. But Ellie Shore doesn't have the same opportunities for granting since we're not a heritage structure.
Jesse.
Through you, Lori, I'm just wondering if Andrea is in a position to comment on where she thinks the board may be moving. I know there's an election in November or October, I guess, where she thinks the board is moving in relation to the apparently ever increasing demand or needs of the library for capital improvements. You're muted.
No, she's not muted, but we can't hear you either.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. No, you're right. The election is going to be, through you, Madam Chair, the election is October 24th. The new council actually comes in a little earlier than it did 4 years ago. I think it comes in at the end of November instead of the beginning of December. And one of the first big pieces is going to be the budget, the way that it was 4 years ago as well. So that will be the chance for us to look comprehensively across all of the facilities. And I would really defer to Dr. Saunders, because she is doing staff to staff connections in terms of where the prioritizing is. And as she's mentioned, our finance staff is trying to get things back onto the list. But we wouldn't be the only building. We still have life in our community center, et cetera. You know, we're making do with the facilities that we have, but I wouldn't be in a position to say if one is coming to the top of the surface more than another.
Okay. Sabrina, I remember a few years ago you did a gap analysis, I think it was called. And it was actually, Joanne is smiling. And I'm wondering the status of that, because I mean, that was what, 4 years old now, maybe 5 now. And is there any value in updating that so we as a board have a current understanding of the building deficiencies, but also a way of perhaps when we're doing an orientation to a new council to present the kind of deficiencies we're looking at?
Certainly. And that was the compendium document that I spoke of that addressed some of the pieces that I didn't feel made it into the condition report, or some of the pieces that were in the condition report that for a public service site didn't make sense. So for example, they talked about, how often you could resurface floors or paint buildings, and that might work for an office building to have a 10-year painting cycle, but it doesn't work when you have, a few hundred people using the site on, any given day who are all sitting with their chair against the same wall. It needs to be painted more often than that. And so not all of them are big maintenance issues. They're also aesthetic issues, but we know that eventually if you don't have paint on a wall, you also don't have drywall on a wall. It does crack, it does get damaged. So I can certainly update that document and bring that back to the board. And I think that would be a good addition to the legacy package that we're pulling together. The strategic plan, the legacy document, the letter to the next board, the how we can support council with recruitment and any of the board appointment content, our orientation to a new board, as well as our orientation to council, and any of that information update that we give to potential candidates of the board and or council.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just jotting it down on our action plan to add another item to show up on that document. Any other questions or discussion of the risk assessment report? I want to say thank you, Sabrina. I think that was an excellent report, and it made me feel much more in touch with what kind of risk we as a board might be facing. So thanks very much for doing that. Our next report is the strategic planning working group update for April. And I have to say I left my copy of that upstairs. So if you could bring that up on the screen, that might help trigger my memory. Yeah, so our basic intent today is to look at the final two documents, which you will have received in the board package. If you can go down a little bit further, the other thing I was very pleased to see the list of people here that we need to thank for the support they gave us as we did this consultation process. And in fact, I wonder if we could capture that section of this report and put it into the key messages so that it's much more public that we are thanking these people. And perhaps even sending an individual letter of thanks to them. Does that make sense? We have asked for a deputation with, I think it's Committee of the Whole on May 10th to present this plan, assuming, of course, that it does get approved at today's meeting. In terms of introduction, I don't know if there's anything else, Sabrina, or perhaps Mary, you want to say. Otherwise, we can go directly and take a look at the two documents. Oh.
I don't have anything to add. I'm not sure if Mary Dodge, our Manager of Community Engagement, has anything she wants to add.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do not have anything to add. Thank you.
In which case, shall we go to the actual documents? Take a quick, bring those up on the screen. So is this the big one?
This is
the big one. We all had a chance to look at this, and I'm just wondering if people have anything in particular they want to look at or comment on, or would be helpful just to scroll through to refresh your memory as we go along. Otherwise, we'll just be looking for a motion to approve it.
So this document will be like we did the last time. It is quite large, and it is intended to be put up on the website. We want this to be something that the public has the ability to see what the full strategic plan report is. But at the same point, we're not going to spend money on printing this document and circulating it. It'll be available through the website. It is the overview of everything that was done over the 14-month process, and identifies how we came to the 3 pillars, 11 goals, and 2 underpinning themes.
So I see the new logo is listed to go there, but you're still waiting on the actual physical or digital representation.
Yes, we've met with the logo designer, New Sun Design, local company here in Thornbury, and we should be having that in probably in about a week or so, and we'll be able to release the document right away.
In about a week, okay, good. Any questions or comments about this document from anybody? I see Morris's hand. You're muted. There we go.
Sabrina, if you could, can you find slide number 18? Can you move that up a bit? It doesn't matter. There's something odd about that particular section in the bottom left-hand corner.
It's the chair, isn't it? That's in the edge of that picture. Is that what you're referring to?
No. It's the, I have to say this very carefully, but it's actually, the background picture is good to me when I looked at it, but I must say, the picture of the chair, are you sitting down?
Moi?
what?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was crouching on the ground, so I didn't actually block the screen. It just makes me look like I'm a midget.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but that's what struck me right away. It's a very unusual picture. Is there any way of changing that? Maybe I'm, I've got the wrong opinion, but if I didn't say it, I don't know who would.
I think it's in the year in review. There's the same. There's this picture, but it actually includes my bottom half, so you can see why I'm looking so short, because you can see that I'm crouching. And I don't know whether it's even possible just to switch out that one photo for the other one. I think that would make a difference.
Laurie, if you're happy with that going public, don't bother listening to me.
Well, thank you, Morris. It's very kind. I don't. I'm short anyway. I'm just a little bit shorter.
That's not the point. No. If you had been standing up straight and tall and you obscured part of that wording, town hall meeting, it wouldn't have bothered it one bit.
No.
My question is it too late to change that?
Yeah.
Okay, that answers the question, but you've had my comments.
Yes, I think now that we've seen the picture, and even me standing up, I probably wouldn't even have blocked the bloody M in the word meeting, but but at the time it appeared that I might, so I crouched down.
Other than that, it's a very good document. Very good.
Thank you. I'm glad that's your only concern, Morris. Thank you. But I do think, Sabrina, if you can pull out that other one, I know it's in the year in review, is a bit better. We can swap it out without too much difficulty. Thank you. The other document is the executive version of that. Can you maybe just pull that up for a second? There's obviously no different content. It's just we've shrunk everything down to a few of the key elements. And that's the document that, well, I usually have handy. I don't right now. Yeah.
So this document is a 11 by 17. So you're looking at it in the print form, which of course would be folded down the middle. This is something that we do print. We distribute to households. We distribute in our buildings when we're at events, to members of council, to our partners. We may be doing this as a mailer individually. In the past, we've also partnered with the review and included it in the review. So we'll be looking at what's the best way to get that out to the public again.
Great. There's a page 2 to that, right? There it is. Thank you. So anything, other comments or questions around the strategic plan? Okay, seeing none. Can we move? Hang on a second, there's no There is a motion. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to approve the 22 to 26 strategic plan for release. Joanne,
I'll second that.
that was Morris.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Great, that's passed. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you to Sabrina and Mary and other staff that participated in the creation of this. It was a big work, and I really appreciate all the thoughtfulness and effort that went into its development. Now, if we could move on to the year in review 2021 annual report, and I'm just going to grab some water while you're pulling that up.
So I'm going to have my tech side pull this item up for us, and then you can just cue it up and pause it. So before we start the item, I just want to remind the board and of course any members of the public who may be watching this, just so there isn't confusion. This is the storyboard version, which means there is no live action video in here. This is the way we're bringing it to the board for approval, so that then we know that you're happy with the script, you're happy with the layout, you're happy with the content. Then we'll go through and embed our stats throughout. There'll be things that pop up just like we did in 2020. It'll have music that plays in the background. It'll be a layering of still pictures and video. So right now it just sort of pops up with a slide that has quite a number of still images. It's quite boring to watch. I apologize for that. We're at about 7 minutes as it is here. Once we get in, our movement and our animation of our images and the different video clips, we expect this to be right about the same point as last year, which was 10 minutes. So if you are ready, Madam Chair, we can start. Welcome to the 2021 Year in Review. The Blue Mountains Public Library Board and staff continued to meet the challenges of the pandemic as we work to meet our community mandate to provide governance and service excellence. Our major initiative was the Strategic Plan Study, which began in March of 2021, when the board approved an extensive strategic planning process, which included 5 phases. Phase 1, the listening phase, had a roving librarian and staff hearing the aspirations and concerns from community members, attending community events, and speaking with residents at local businesses. We connected with our rural community members where every household had to convene at the local mailbox. Direct mailers advertised these mailbox parties and was an innovative way to make contact with our rural residents in their home locations. Phase 2 took on a more traditional consultation approach of focus groups, interviews, and our Post-it note activity. At the end of 2021, we began our Phase 3 synthesis of the community comments, which were tested in a community survey early in 2022. As in 2020, our programs and services needed to remain nimble to meet the sporadic restrictions and lockdowns. We continued our window shopping browsing, offered a hybrid of curbside and open access service, and doubled down on protocols to ensure the safety of our community and staff. Our programs continued to grow this year as we learned how best to provide strong virtual services, as well as how our community liked to access that content. To support safety while offering hands-on services, we enhanced our Take and Make series, with more content available across our GLAM for all ages. In addition to children's programming, we supported our local apple industry, eco-conscious living, small businesses, and many more activities. Beyond the entertainment value, these programs showcased community businesses, encouraging the Support Local movement. We also heard from our community that there was a need for promotion of local health and wellness resources. In partnership with local health providers, we offered a monthly health and wellness series pointing our community to their local experts. Our staff also supported local, regional, and national initiatives, such as technology support for completion of the census, tax clinics, local and Grey Bruce health units pop-up vaccination clinic registration, and the provincial printing of the vaccine passport. As part of our mandate to provide 21st century literacies, we offered a number of programs on cybersecurity, mis- and disinformation, environmental awareness, finances, technology, STEM, arts and culture, health, and truth and reconciliation. Following the discovery of the initial 215 unmarked graves at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in May, staff and community hung 215 ribbons each at the Ellie Shore Library and the Craigslist Heritage Depot. In support of our corporate value statement, we used our voice to bring awareness, build citizenry, and begin the truth and reconciliation discussions in the community. We continued these efforts throughout the year, including holding consultation discussions on our responsibilities to truth and reconciliation as a community. These discussions informed the need for the new strategic plan to include truth and reconciliation as an underpinning theme. With all the activities, programs, and hybrid service models offered this year across our GLAM, communication continued to be a key strategic priority. Our successes included the addition of a communication staffer, ongoing service and COVID-19 updates, enhancing our newsletter in both appearance and content, adding LinkedIn to our suite of social media, and reorganizing our YouTube channel for ease of access. 2021 was another busy year for the Real History film series. We launched our 8th and 9th films, The Niagara Escarpment and Fossils, virtually. In partnership with the town, we also produced the Apple Harvest film, which took the place of a physical festival due to the pandemic. Our 11th film, Blue Mountain Pottery, has begun filming and will launch at the Blue Mountain Pottery Expo in 2022. Once again, our film accolades were numerous, winning the Dorothy Duncan Public History Award, which recognizes an outstanding public history project delivered in Ontario, the Tilly Award, which showcases the best North American non-broadcast programming, and being named as one of the top 3 finalists in the Governor General's History Award for Excellence in Community Programming. The Gallery at Ellie Shore and the Arts and Culture Council held both virtual and in-person exhibits. During lockdown, we rotated art throughout our courtyard windows. We also supported the town's municipal art program, which included a 2-day public open house. The ACC relaunched the ACC Presents as a virtual series, which was extremely successful. This year, we partnered with Events for Life to showcase their participants' creativity and provided 100% of the sales revenue back to the organization. Based on the strategic plan study requests, we expanded our alternate collections called our Library of Things. This includes our puzzles, games, technology, tech toys, snowshoes, and all of the creator space offerings. As the board began its 3rd year of the 4-year cycle, it prioritized the strategic plan study, the salary and pay equity study, ongoing stable funding, and governance excellence. In partnership with the town, the board participated in a comprehensive salary and pay equity study, which informed the 2022 staffing model and budget. Also in partnership, the board worked with council to establish a multi-year funding agreement based on the previous year's tax levy in order to provide stable funding to the GLAM. In November, the board moved forward with the establishment of BMPL as a charity. In consultation, we heard from our community that they have one wallet and that they don't want fundraising efforts in addition to their taxation. Changing our CRA status will open more national finance opportunities to the GLAM while continuing to respect the community's wishes. Continuing to meet virtually throughout the year, the board monitored community participation in live stream and recorded board meeting attendance. The board determined that in 2022, meetings should move to hybrid to support the community's access in the governance process. In November of 2021, the community lost a great champion of our glam, board member and Deputy Mayor Potter. Our library and museum are stronger as a result of Rob Potter's legacy, and we are grateful to Rob and his family for the time he gave to the Blue Mountains Public Library. On behalf of the board and staff, we look forward to continuing to serve you in 2022 and launching our new strategic plan and initiatives.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions, suggestions for change? I see Joanne, and I see Dorothy, and then I see Morris.
Just a great review, and I commend the huge effort that went into that creation.
Thank you. Dorothy?
Oh, thank you. I just want to agree with Joanne and add my thanks. I thought it was an impressive piece of work. I mean, if you look at all that's happened during the pandemic, and I think it's uplifting and just impressive. So thank you to all involved.
Great. Morris? Oops, no, you muted.
Actually, through you, Madam Chair, just a quick question for Andrea. Andrea, how and when do the council members view this? Do they ever view this thing, this document, report?
Are you the chair? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. All of our minutes the minutes of the library board are always put through in the board in the council packages. So we all review the materials that come before, and live links go to things like there is the link to this, for example, but I guess there'll be another link once it's actually the live version. And then, of course, we do have the occasional deputation, such as the one that's going to be coming up on May 10th. So I think the timing will be good for that. Would it not? But given that the time is of the essence when we're in front of council for the deputation, Dr. Saunders, are you planning on making use of that, or were you going to refer to it and encourage members of the public who are watching as well to watch the video with the link, as well as council members in advance?
Through you, Madam Chair, we will make a presentation, a deputation to council. I'm not sure that it's going to make the May 10th. We may be the meeting following that, just given how much time it'll take now to actually produce the final film. I believe that we were on for in early June, and we're also back for another deputation on July 4th. So we'll be making regular deputations to council as we're updating them on various information happening, but most definitely we'll be promoting this to council.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, as I do with the conservation authorities, when there's something of significance that comes through on the minutes, I do tend to highlight them, so that this will be a good opportunity for me to highlight them. I know that my council colleagues and I always look the materials in advance, but it will be helpful to people who might be chiming in, and it'll be another way of outreach to make sure that it gets in front of people. Thank you very much for the professional presentation you put together, and I very much appreciate the call out to my colleague, the former Deputy Mayor Potter. So thank you very much.
So if I may, Andrea, can we sort of count on you as a board member to promote this to council when it's appropriate? Make sure it's up on the big screen, make sure that they go through it for 10 minutes and listen to every word. Was it that funny?
Sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair, the deputations are usually 10 minutes long, so that would take up a lot of the moment of presence that Dr. Saunders would have there to be able to present the other material. But we certainly can, like I said, direct people to this, but I believe you said it's going to be 7 minutes, or it was 7 minutes in this version. I don't know how long it will be afterwards. But that material gets circulated in advance of the council meeting for people who are going through the package, and then they can always look for it afterwards too, because the minutes are always perpetually available on the website. But I will certainly make a verbal notation of it, especially so that it might catch people's attention more easily.
Thank you. I was hoping you would separate this subject from the deputation, which I knew was going to be 10 minutes, and somehow in your capacity as councillor, make sure all those councillors watch it in detail.
Well, with all due respect to my council colleagues, I'm sure they go through the package the way that I do and click the links and watch them. And really what I'd like to do is present it not just to council, but also make sure that as many members of the public reach it as well. So if they don't see it on if they don't catch it in all the communications that comes out from the library, it'll be another avenue for us to share. So I do think I will leave it to Dr. Saunders to negotiate with our clerk in terms of the protocol and the process for what material she plans to present and how.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, I've seen your hand a couple of times.
A comment and a question. Excuse me. I want to add my commendation to the really professional way in which this was put together. I think it will be very impressive in its final format. The question I'm asking is, I mean, this I know is something which will be circulated to the public at large, and it's a small point, but there was a reference to the library board late in the presentation, and I'm curious as to whether anyone thinks that the comment should be made by the narrator that the board members are unpaid volunteers.
Anybody have any thoughts around that? Do we think that's already generally known, or do we think that people think we're paid?
There's a lot of new people in the town these days.
I don't know. Do you have any objection to adding that? Any other thoughts or comments? Dorothy? I unmute first.
Apologies through you, Madam Chair. I agree with that statement. I know it's not uncommon for board members to receive some kind of stipend or other form of gratuity, and I think it reflects well on us to say that we're unpaid volunteers.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I have no set feeling one way or the other. I don't think it's a bad thing to add. Anybody else? Morris, Joanne, Andrea?
Quite frankly, I'm not even sure why Jesse brought that up.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, you want to comment?
I have reasons. Why do I have to explain it to Morris?
You
I think
don't.
that there's a lot of, I live in Laura Bay, and there are literally hundreds of new residents living in Laura Bay who have no contact with or have never had a contact with the library, and they have no clue as to whether we're paid or not paid, what we do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's only part of the picture. I'm not trying to wave a flag. I think it's simply a fact.
Well, why don't you just tell them to look at the 2021 report? That'll tell them what we do.
Well,
Okay.
that's what this whole presentation is all about, Morris.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which is why you're suggesting that we add into that year in review the statement about it. So I think that's a fair enough thing to do.
The statement that we are not paid, or that we.
Correct. That we're volunteers, that we're unpaid volunteers. Yeah. Okay. But it does, Jesse, something you just said made me wonder if, in terms of a pop-up library location, if the clubhouse at Laura Bay might be a place where we somehow present some library services.
Well, it's a good question. The Laura Bay Corporation has just been sold by Larry Dunn's company, to a major construction homeowning firm, the name of which escapes me, their Toronto firm. And I have no idea as to whether they would be receptive. I think it's probably a pretty good idea, though.
Sabrina, is that something that you can look into when you're doing? I know there's a lot of things in our strat plan is about new locations for pop-up services.
We can follow up. I know previously we've had no ability to get into many of the private clubs, such as Laura Bay's Clubhouse, without paying large fees, which are not within our budget. But we can see if maybe there's been a shift in thinking.
How about the mailbox party at Laura Bay? They have central mailboxes there, or is that physically in the building as well?
Oh, no, individual mailboxes for each area.
Okay. Okay. I'll leave that with you, Sabrina, but thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Anything else on the year in review then? Seeing nothing, can I get a motion that the board approve the year in review 2021 annual report, I guess, as revised, because there was a small revision there, for completion and release. Mover, I see Joanne moving. Seconder, please, Dorothy. Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. That's carried.
And if I may, Madam Chair, the 2020 document does have 380 views, most of which have gone right through. A few people will accidentally click on something, but our views have been pretty much through to the end of the document. I would say that there's really not a chance that 380 people would have read an annual review.
Not a chance. Not a chance. Yeah. I'm very pleased that we're doing a video format, because I think it's much more engaging, and in 10 minutes, they get an awful lot of information. Oh, I also want to say, in helping to think about what should be in this, I reviewed all the key messages from the last year, and I realized the extent how they really capture some of the key stuff we're doing, and sort of helped me remember what had gone on last year. Not so much the service stuff, of course, but the various items that we deal with more at the board level. So I found that. So I'm really focusing on key messages at the end of meetings, because they prove to me how important they are. Moving on to the next item, which is the board assembly report from Joanne.
I had to join the assembly for smaller libraries that's up to 5,000 members because of time. The two major issues that that were addressed by Jesse, the leader, were about policy regarding candidates and the provincial election, and also succession. I listened to the other people, and then I had to say that once again they were preaching to the converted, that we in fact already had dealt with a policy. I don't know if we called it a policy, but we did address that issue. And also in small, and that it was hard not to brag, because maybe I am naive, but I don't think succession is a big issue in our area because of the demographics of comfortably well off, well-educated, committed population. Just judging from this year, and everybody has brought such a multitude and an array of skills. And in some areas, they were really having a problem, and some of the board members were going out and trying to rope in their friends for the next one, which I quite surprised me. Also, when I said this, the leader said that rather than my sounding as if I were bragging, that we in our board had the good fortune of being led by Dr. Saunders. And Dr. Saunders should be running every single library in the world. And then we would all be in this wonderful position. So that's my take from this. Also, what really took me aback, having seen the year in review and everything that the board, not the board, but the library through Dr. Saunders and our excellent staff were able to do, I found that the board, many boards were so stuck and so behind because of the pandemic. They governance went by the by. So many of the yearly, our yearly plan, they were not able to accomplish, nor have they accomplished it in the past 2 years. So I really held up my head for our library, and also felt very sad for the struggle of others. And that's it.
Thank you, Joanne. How many libraries were in attendance at that meeting?
I believe it was about 12. And I've spoken to Dr. Saunders before, to Sabrina before, wondering how she has the patience to attend all these meetings, because I'm very impatient and do not suffer fools gladly, or maybe most people, I don't know. And I found that very often some of these board meetings were just an opportunity for some library board people to just talk on and on and on about their lives and their accomplishments, ad nauseum. But this time they were struggling. This group of people were truly struggling, and they were attending this regional meeting to find encouragement and answers, and they are there in the regional meetings.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any questions for Joanne? And you've got another one of these meetings coming up in the fall. Is it October, November?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll let us know which agenda we need to put the report on, I guess, depending on the date you attend.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. So I need a mover and a seconder that the board receive the strategic plan discussions as information. Mover, please. Andrea. Seconder, please. Morris. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, other business. The next item is the CRA application update.
Yep. I did make a bit of an update on this when we were dealing with the risk management piece. We've had quite a bit of a circular workaround at this point. So currently there is no list with the provincial government of who the board members are for Blue Mountains Public Library. We put all of our reports into the ministry through the province appropriately, but because we don't have an incorporation number there technically is no incorporation, the Blue Mountains Public Library. Because there is no incorporation number and therefore members of the board, nobody can give permission to do all of the things that we need to do with the My CRA account. We did a workaround about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, 2018, I believe, that made me a representative of the organization, but I could not be listed as the one of the owners. The way it's listed for the non-for-profit would be your board members and your executive director or CEO. So as a representative, I can't add people or authorize anything to happen. So we've taken the resolution and we're trying to work with CRA at this point. Our lawyer is trying to do the same thing and the lawyer cannot be added. So when I've tried to add the lawyer on as a representative, I was told we need to go to the province and update through that end, and the province says you don't exist. So this is why I mentioned that aspect of risk is it doesn't rear its head often, but when it does, it's a 6-month round robin of trying to go ask your mother, go ask your father situation between our province territories and our federal government because of the way the Public Library Act is identifying us. So that is really where we are with the CRA application. Everything is done. Everything is ready to be submitted. And it was actually done quite quickly following our meeting in November. And now it's just a case that he needs to have the access into the My CRA account to be able to upload, and they no longer accept any paper documents. So until we can get him access to do that, then we're sort of in a halt, waiting to take the next step. So the resolution that I have here is a workaround, which is the way we had to do it with myself. We passed a resolution. I signed it. We used the legal stamp. I had our chair sign it. We then have to physically mail it to CRA, which takes quite some time to do that, which might be an additional 3 or 4 months for this paper copy to get there and be approved. In the meantime, I will continue to work on the back end with the ministry and the province to do what I need to do there. But instead of putting all of my effort into the province and finding nothing happens, we want to move forward on both fronts. So that's what this particular resolution is for.
Just to be clear, the purpose of this motion is to add Rob Robinson, who is the lawyer that we've retained to help with our application for charitable status, to add him as a BNPL representative with CRA on our My CRA account to enable him to move forward with both the not-for-profit and the charitable status registration.
It is just with the charitable status registration, and the provincial end he's not involved with. I'm working on that one.
Okay. And then the second portion of this motion is that the chair and CEO provide the required documentation to CRA. And that documentation is really just signing off saying the board has approved that Rob Robinson be added.
Yes, the last time we did this, when we added myself, we had to send basically the resolution in the letter. They then eventually corresponded about 3 months later and asked for us to do a few more things. They usually send you a new form that needs to be completed because in the period of time, something has changed. In this case, we may have a new board. So basically just saying the chair, not necessarily Lori, but the chair, whomever that may be, if we wind up in a new board, and I will have the ability to just keep moving forward with this piece while we're working with CRA. And then I will continue to attack the provincial end and see if I can make any headway that way as well.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Can I get a mover and seconder for this motion?
Could you read the motion, please?
Yes, that the board appoint Rob Robinson who is legal counsel for the BNPL application for charitable status, as the BNPL representative with CRA, and that the chair and CEO provide the required documentation to the CRA. I'm happy to move that motion. Looking for a seconder.
Question?
Okay, Joanne is seconding. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? I know it's a bit of a weird one.
I have a question.
Yes, Jesse.
How is Robinson being paid? Or is he?
So that goes to Sabrina.
We do have a retainer with him for this project.
And I believe that was the motion we passed at the last meeting. Is that not correct?
In November.
November, oh, longer ago than I thought. Any,
Is he charging by the hour, Sabrina?
Yes, he has given us a quote for what this project will cost. We're just in a holding pattern now, and I told him that I would take care of the items on this end so that we're not paying for this, because I know that it was a long back and forth, and I certainly don't want to be billed by the hour for all of the nuance that CRA will bring to it. So we are still working within the original budget.
Well, can I ask a third question? Does he have any particular background or expertise in that area?
Charitable status, yes.
Okay.
any other questions? Okay, in which case I will ask all in favor of the motion. Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's carried. The next item is the submission of the annual survey. And I'll let Sabrina again comment on that.
So this is just one item that is an annual that we have to do by the end of April. I submit everything as part of the tasks operationally that I need to do. But on the form, it does say that the chair and the CEO sign off. And it's an electronic button that I need to press. So, you know, while I could ask the chair to sign off on that verbally, it is something that I've always brought to the board and just asked the board to approve that to happen, that submission. It is a requirement of our public library status. So it is, you know, something that we can't not do, but at the same point, since they do ask for multiple people to sign off on it, this is the way we've done that in the past.
And basically it's a statistical report to the ministry on things like number of card holders, circulation, that kind of thing, right? May I have a mover and seconder to approve the CEO and chair to sign the annual survey of public library submission to the Ministry of blah, 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 and blah. Way too long to say.
I'll move it.
Okay, got Morris and I have Dorothy seconding. Any other questions or any comments? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. That's carried. The last item under other business is the notice of policy revision. And I think there are 9 of those listed there. And that's what you will be receiving in the next day or two, copies of those to review for discussion and changes at our next meeting. So this is really just the formal notice of possible policy revisions for the next meeting. Okay. Round table. Is there anything in particular anyone cares to discuss, or is there something that Sabrina, you think you should point out to us? Jesse.
Apropos of our previous discussion about, for want of a better phrase, spreading the word about the library. The new owner of the Laura Bay community is a company called Great Gulf Homes.
Oh yeah, I've seen
one
that
of
name.
the major builders in North America. It has built over 80,000 homes in North America. And it is also the owner of Taboo, which is a resort in Muskoka. I think that the idea of a satellite library in the Lower Bay Clubhouse in principle is a really good one. there certainly are going to be hundreds of people there who might well be interested. The thing is, however, that nobody knows yet what the new owner's approach is going to be regarding the clubhouse, which badly needs heavy expansion. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think the board should certainly keep an eye on what's going on there in the hope that at some point down the road, we can get a foothold. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Any discussion on any of the roundtable items? Andrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's coming up on April 30th, and I know that Mary Doge has already sent around the information about the volunteer appreciation event that will be held at the Marsh Street Center. But I did receive an email from her, so I know that she's on that. But we are welcoming community groups to send their volunteers for a special thank you. It's also the chance for us to do the volunteer appreciation awards for the town at that point. And it's from 9 to 11 at the Marsh Street Center. It is, of course, a free event, but we are asking for RSVPs. So any of the communication that she sent out or that the town is sending out is requesting that the RSVP goes back to Alex over at the Marsh Street Center, just so we can plan for our numbers. And that's in conjunction with Volunteer Appreciation Week. So that's why we selected this particular time.
Mm-hmm. I
was
know
curious.
I'm not in a position to attend, but I wonder if any of the other board members are in a position to do so.
I will give it some thought, but I have a question. Did we have a volunteer appreciation day or whatever last year or previous years?
We have in previous years, I know at the library, but I don't recall when last
Library
year.
is a different thing. Yeah, I knew about that.
Yeah. No, through you, Madam Chair, this is actually the first year we're getting back to the Volunteer Appreciation Awards that we have. So we did not, during COVID, we did not do them. So we are catching up. This is our opportunity to get back onto that. So there are a number of categories. There are 8 different awards that are being distributed. And you're right, we did not have that last year.
Okay. Like I said, I'm unable to attend, but I do hope someone else from the library board might be able to, or any of the members of the library board attend. Okay, thank you. Anything else under round table?
Having to do with volunteerism, the library does have volunteer little goodie bags for all of our volunteers, and library board members are in that group as well. So they are at the front desk. If you were just dealing like a hold, it'll be there for you at Ellie Shore. If there's anybody who would prefer to pick up at CHD, let us know and we can send it over there. And then our members who are here today can grab that on the way out.
Oh, okay.
Got to be careful there, you know.
Okay. Any other roundtable items? No. Can I have a motion that we receive information from the roundtable discussions, please? Mover, Jesse, thank you. Seconder, Andrea, thank you very much. All in favor? Great, that's carried. The next item is the key messages update. And I wonder if you could put that up on the screen for us. Thank you. I jotted down a couple of things. You mentioned the GoVax bus at the library in May. I wonder if we can add that, or will it be happening after the May board meeting, in which case we can mention it then if it's a more appropriate time. So Sabrina, do you have a...
Yes, it will be happening probably the week after the next board meeting. So we're expecting it to be the week of May 22nd. We don't have the date yet. If it is finalized in the next, usually we put this out on Monday. So if it's finalized by then, I can put it onto this as well. And if not, it'll definitely be on the next key message.
Great. Okay. And I also thought, I think I mentioned this too, about the, oh, here's another question. The Ellie Shore returns to regular hours item, you don't mention the reason why we don't have Sunday hours, though I know that appears in the report. So I'm wondering if we can just carry that sentence from your report over here about Sunday hours, and that, because of that, in that statement you say that the reason we aren't adding Sunday hours back in is so we have the staff time to continue with the virtual programming, because now we're doubling up on programming. So I think that's an important piece of information. I wondered if under the strategic plan, under organizational excellence, that we say the plan is approved, can we actually add into this the thank you to that list of businesses that supported us, please? And the other item I would like to see some changes to, wait till you finish typing, is under the CRA at the bottom. There's a middle sentence in there which I don't think we really need, and it's about in previous decades we've had foundations or friends group. I don't know that that's really, we care that much about that. It's more that this will enable us to apply for national and provincial grants that are open only to charities. I think that is my understanding. I hope that's correct. And that's more the reason we're going for this status.
Yeah, I agree, Laurie. You don't have to put that others. Well, I'm happy you're taking that out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you don't need the roles, the activities into one location and streamlines the process either. Great, thank you. Yeah, those were the few changes I would like to see. Did anyone else have any other things they want added to or changed, deleted from the key messages?
Well, if we have, as a board, have decided to go to have our meetings all virtual, should we not tell people that?
No.
I don't know that we've made the decision to make them all virtual. I was just suggesting we make the May meeting virtual because of the complexity of the time conversation we're having. But I don't have any trouble with continuing with hybrid after that.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're okay with hybrid? I'll have to get some more instruction on these things.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if we could sort out the whole earphone on-off thing, because the difficulty of the delay is annoying when you're actually physically in place.
It would also be nice to get back to in-person meetings, wouldn't it? Or am I wrong?
I would certainly like to, but I think we have concerns about distancing still, and with the numbers going bonkers right now. So again, I think we have to sort of go meeting by meeting to make that decision. We also said that we thought it was important to continue broadcasting or making our meetings available online. So there's a number of factors we're trying to balance. Anything else? Anything else on the key messages? No, seeing none. Then I'd like a mover and seconder to approve the release of the key messages update for April. Joanne, seconder, please. Dorothy, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. That's carried. Notice of upcoming meetings. So our next regularly scheduled meeting is May. Is it the 16th or the 19th?
19th.
Okay.
2 dates
Sorry.
then.
That is supposed to be June, not May, because May will not be a regularly scheduled meeting since it is having alternate timing. So that should say June 16th will be the regularly scheduled meeting at 2 p.m. And then May 19th will be the meeting open to the public that starts at approximately 3:30.
Okay, and the special meeting starting at, did we say 9:30?
Yes.
Okay. And the intent here then is that the June meeting is hybrid. And we've said that the May one on this particular occasion will be a Zoom meeting. Okay. And then we have
3:30, you said, Sabrina?
It'll happen at the end of the closed session. So we don't have an official start time for it. We're assuming by the time we get through the rest of the business that we're looking at close to 3:30.
Okay, thank you.
but all of us have to be there at 9:30 for the special meeting. So Morris, your lips are moving. Okay, so just to be clear, so the May meeting starts at 9:30 as a closed session for all of us. And it will go for most of the day, and we will, I guess, well, we'll break for lunch. We'll be happy to know that. And that will then, when the closed meeting is done, we will adjourn and we will open to a regular meeting starting, we think, about 3:30. But that's the target, which is why it's indicated here so that if public want to participate, then they know about when we expect to start the open meeting. There are 2 deputations coming up that we're going to committee of the whole with, and the one is May 10th is the strategic plan one for sure. And I forget what is the second deputation on May 10th about, Sabrina?
The second is an operational one. I'm hoping that that'll end up being canceled. At this point, the town staff are a bit confused by our MOU, and they believe that we need to go to council and ask for something that's identified in the MOU. So I've been trying to bring that information to them, and if not, then I will be making a request that council inform staff to follow the MOU.
And what's the actual topic?
The topic is about us having access through reciprocal borrowing to the town facilities. So in our schedule, it does list that the library has access to town-owned facilities at no cost. We are trying to do our rural programming at Ravenna Hall and at the Craigslist Community Center, and they said that they're unable to waive the fees, that only council can do that by bylaw. We have explained that the MOU does clearly list that, so that has already been addressed and doesn't need to go back to council. I'm hoping that we will have that resolved and not have to make a presentation to council, because I'm sure council will bounce it right back to staff and say, it's in the MOU, we don't need to hear this matter, it's already been decided.
And are you referring to the most recent MOU, or are you referring to the one from written signed, what, 4 years ago now?
The memorandum of understanding is the only one. The financial agreement that we have is separate from the MOU. So the MOU does have a number of schedules, I believe 7 different schedules, one of which has to do with shared resources. And clause 3 on that identifies that the library may access town facilities for programs and services, and that the town also has access to reserve and rent our facilities, which we have done in the past. I think that it's just that since the pandemic, people have kind of forgotten, and now we're coming back for the first time in a few years to get these spaces. So we're sort of reteaching and re-educating about the MOU. But at this point, we do have a deputation scheduled. I'm just hopeful that before we get to that point, it'll be resolved with internally with staff.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that? That was a bit of a surprising thing for me. Okay. None? Well, then I think we are done unless anyone has any other questions or comments they would like to make before I declare us adjourned. Seeing nothing, then I thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you in about a month.